Yeah, thank you, Nicolas. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well, Patrick.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, so welcome everybody to this webinar. As you have seen on the invitation, this webinar basically is mainly for leaders, managers, and coordinators of remote team, and it's going to be highly interactive for one main reason, because basically I have a strong belief, which is whatever I'm going to tell you, the most important is what you're going to discover by yourself, and we're going to explore together. If you are not a permanent leader, manager of remote teams, and you are experiencing right now this situation of geographically dispersion due to COVID lockdown, this webinar can contain and can have some useful information for you. So let's start talking about our main topic, which is the remote team. And for that, I propose you first just to ask you a question. And the question is very simple, which is when you think about leading remote teams, what do you feel? So what do you feel when you think about leading remote teams? And I propose you to write that on a piece of paper or wherever you want. So try all of you to write your feelings. And when you have done that, now I propose you a poll with another question. And the question is connected to the previous one, which is when you read the words that you've just written, according to you, are they rather positive or negative? And for this, I'm going just to open the poll, and you're going to be able to vote. So we have already 400 people who have voted. We have 80% of the participants have already answered. Okay. Yeah. So let's close the vote now. And I'm going just to share with you the results. And as you can see, basically we have right now 60% or 59% of you who are feeling rather positive feeling about when you think about leading remote teams, which depends on the case. It's quite high due to the situation, because sometime, and especially when people are discovering that, it's not always very easy. So, but rather positive. It's one piece of information. So now I suggest to be able to move forward. I suggest just to clarify some definitions, because we're going to talk about leading remote teams, and there are some words that we're going just to agree on, and I'm going to propose you. So one first definition is simply the definition of what we're going to call geographically dispersed team, agility, limited group, people who are important for your activity, working with you on a regular basis to achieve a common goal, cannot meet face-to-face more than once every 2 weeks. This is my definition. So you can find other definition. This is the definition that basically I use a lot when I have many managers, working with many managers in executive education, for instance. It's an interesting one. So it means that in your team, you can count and you can include, you can think about people who are not your direct reports. It can be some people who are working with you in a transversal way for project, for instance. So this is the first definition. The second definition, because we're talking about leading people, is just what is leadership. And I propose to share with you this definition. I like this definition because I strongly believe that leadership is not something that we have. What does it mean? It means that everybody and all of you, you can make progress. You can develop your ability to lead people, and because it's mainly actions and behaviors. So it's a positive, I would say, definition, and I like it, and I can observe with many managers that they can grow and they can move forward. Another important things to distinguish is managers and leaders. Basically, managers are focused more on task, thing, result processes, when leaders focus rather on people and development. And finally, leadership are people who have a vision, passionate, foster hope, inspire people, integrating, building trust, and we're going to focus basically on this in the coming with the coming slide. Before starting with the first aspect to explore, I have a question for you, which is again a poll, and I propose you just to answer this one. And now the vote is open. Okay, so we have 82%. I'm going to share the results now. So as you can see, we have the first one is 39% with trust, organization 31, 21 for time, and 9% for technology. So basically, I can see that there are many, I would say, experts in this webinar because, yes, trust is the topic that we're going to start to explore now. It's one of the most difficult, and if you read literature about this topic, trust is pointed out, and it's one of the main difficulties. So we're going to start with that. I would like to say also to you now that what we're going to explore now are some aspects. We have only 45 minutes together, which means that we're going to explore some aspects, and there are others afterwards to go on. So trust. So let's start with trust. And one question that we have sometime, and do worries help people perform? Sometimes some managers think that yes, if we put a lot of pressure on people, they can perform more. So having attention, yes, but putting too much pressure doesn't work and block people. So worries most of the time is not the solution for that. And the most performing teams have absolutely to evacuate their worries. So another question for you concerning these points would be, what, according to you, are now going to focus on your team members because you are all managers here. And I propose you now to respond to that question. Okay, so yeah, everybody almost voted, 80%. So let's share now the results. So 70% high, 19% low, 10% very high, and 1% very low. Okay, so well, basically, if it's not very high, it's a good news for you because it means that there is some potential to exploit. And wondering this question is important for you because the performance of your team depends a lot on the trust and the confidence that your team members are feeling right now. Well, with COVID situation, we can understand that it's not easy, but we're going to come back later on that. All right. So when we talk about remote teams, one question is how can it work? How can it work when there is no connection? And so connection is as you know is critical. And I found an interesting model on a Google document, which is a distributed work playbook. And they distinguish at Google basically three levels of connection. Basically the logistics. Afterwards, we have the technology, and we have the proximity, the intimacy that people are going to detect and to be able to build trust. So to create trust, the connection with the team members, it's not just sending emails, it's not just having video conferences, it's more than that. It's to create the alliance with people and to be able to listen to the difficulties of your team members. We come back to that in a minute. Concerning trust, I have the pleasure to work quite often with the Army, and I have some colleagues from GIGN, the special forces in the Army, to basically to deliver hostages. And when I work with my colleague, usually we distinguish 4 categories of trust. One category is trust in the system. Trust in the system means for the Army, trusting the weapon, trusting the helicopter, and so on. And in a company, the system is the organization. It can be also all the resources that you get. And the second category is trusting others. In this Army, for instance, unit, the limit of the trust is death. So a question for you is what could be, what is your limit of trust? What is the limit of your trust? For instance, in your boss or in your team members. So a question, so this is the second category, so trust in others. The third category is trust in myself, one of the most difficult one, but a very important one. And the fourth category is trust in future. Trusting the future is something important, especially right now with the crisis that we have with the virus. So these 4 categories have to be distinguished when you work with your team members in order to create, to optimize the potential of the team performance. A question for you now is, what do you do, or how often do you contribute to raise the level of trust, confidence felt by all your team members? And for this, we're going again to open this poll. Okay, so we have enough now for the poll. So you can see the results. 62% of you every week, 23% every month, 10% every quarter, and 5% never. So the more, in terms of connection with remote teams, many research show that it's better to have at least one connection per week, which means that when you discuss, when you talk to your team members every week, one question that you can wonder after talking is, what is the level of trust of my team member? I remember that there are 4 categories. So it's important to be able to detect the level of trust, and also what have you done to raise this level of trust? So this is an interesting question that you can ask, because your influence regarding trust is very important. So another question is basically, so what could be the key? What and where is the key for trust? We could talk about that for a long time, but basically, just to summarize, trust is going to be developed mainly by listening. So when you have your team members spread out in the countries or in the region, or just right now in their home, the most important thing for raising trust is first to listen to them with benevolence, without judging who they are. You can talk about what they are doing, their job, but not who they are. So benevolence, not judging, and also with empathy. When it's not easy for them, feeling empathy and being empathetic is important for them to feel that you understand them, and trust requires absolutely that. So one question you may have is, you can say, for instance, that our feelings can be influenced by our thinking, which is, yes, the case, by our belief. If we believe something, we can influence our feelings. But at the end of the day, feelings is the most important to focus on. So if you want to increase the level of trust of the team members, develop this capacity to feel empathy, to feel the emotions from your team members. And with trust also, trust requires from time to time just to remove pressure, to disconnect. And when we work from home, or when we work from a remote location, especially with time different zones, sometimes it's important to have barrier between the private life and the professional life, and then to be able to disconnect. Disconnecting is really important, even if it's 3 times a day for 1 minute. So mindfulness, meditation, or whatever. But you can do that, and it's easier when you are in your office for doing this. With trust, you can do many things. For instance, maybe some of you were thinking before the COVID crisis that it's not possible to work when everybody is at home. So right now, you can see that it's possible. So trust can change a lot of things. Tools for remote teams. So basically, there are 2 categories of tools. We have the technological tools, and as you just heard, creating trust is mainly to listen to people, which means that basically you can do that with a phone, you can do that with a camera. Synchronous tools are more useful than emails or these type of things. In terms of, let's say, behavior tool, a very important tool is empathy. Develop your empathy to be able to manage, to lead better people and to create trust. Okay? So, Nicolas, before moving to the next aspect, do we have any question concerning trust?
Let me have a look at the various sources of question, because we have now question on YouTube. We sorted out the technical problem. So we've got a first question, which is coming from Jennifer in the US. And Jennifer is asking you, within the COVID-19 special context, how can we create this trust you've been talking about from distance?
Okay, from distance, yeah. Okay, so we could talk about that for a long time, but very short. Basically, when we have this level of uncertainty that we have today, one important thing is to is first, when you are the leader, is to work on yourself, because your influence will be important and will be high towards your team members. So the first thing to do is to work on yourself in order to accept, to digest that maybe things are going to be different in the future than it was before. You know, there is a Kubler-Ross curve of change that maybe you probably know, and there are different steps in this curve. So the most important thing to do is first to work on yourself first. And when you feel more confident, afterwards you're going to have a better influence to help your team members. So basically, your role from a distance will be to listen at the beginning, because people will be worried, and also when they will discover that the future will not be again like the present, afterwards they will need to visualize that another future is possible, that they will have a place in the future. So basically, your main influence is going to be accompanying to adopt the adequate behavior to be able to help your team members from distance to raise trust. Again, it's going to be done by talking to them, again by phone or by video. Okay. So thank you, Nicolas, for this question. So we move now to the next one, and for the next aspect, I propose you an interesting question, which is this one: the level of energy. And I propose you that you answer to this poll. Okay, so we have enough now. So let's see the results. So 55% responded from your team, 34% from you, and 5 and 5 from the company or from your board. So it's interesting because so what I can observe, and after 10 years working with hundreds of leaders of these first teams, my conclusion is you cannot be behind everybody, and when people are working from distance, the energy has to come from them. So the most of the energy for me comes from the team. And I agree with 55% of you, which means that if you are part of the 34%, it means for you that there is a potential maybe to exploit regarding this aspect. So this is why we're going to spend now a few minutes on an important category aspect for remote team, which is desire. And one question that I like to ask is this one. Can a team of puppets win or perform? So the result is, yes, it can work. There are many companies, there are many organizations where people basically are just doing and basically listening to the orders and without any autonomy. And this is without any energy. And it works when competitors are doing the same. But if you have clever and smart competitors, usually it's better when the energy comes from the team members. When we listen to Gallup, you probably know Gallup, measuring engagement of people. They have done that, I think, for about 30 to 200 million of people. And so 85% of employees are not engaged or actively disengaged in their job. So it's a serious topic because if you pay basically 85% of your employees without having effect, there is some potential to exploit here. So basically, if you consider sport as well, think about a team. It can be a football team or a beach volley team. If someone doesn't give the maximum, the team is not going to perform completely. So it's always better to have the energy coming from everybody. So we have now a question for that, which is how often do you contribute to make all your team members full of energy? And let's open a poll for that. Okay, so we have enough again. So the results, 64% every week, 24% every month, 6% every quarter, 5% never. Again, it's for the 36% of you who are not doing that every week, it's a good piece of news, because especially when there is a crisis as we have right now with COVID, the more you help your team members. First, you measure what is the level of energy, and also you help your team members to get more energy. The easier it's going to be. It's not easy, for sure. It's not easy, but it's important to pay attention to that and to focus on that. So there are many ways to basically to motivate people and to get positive propelling energy. One of the most powerful one, this is a sense of purpose. So sense of purpose is when you have basically when you have an answer to what are we working for, what are going to be the consequences of our job, and sense of purpose is extremely powerful. For instance, you can ask your team members. Imagine that we ask to 10-year-old children why our company is great, and you can be surprised by the answers from your team member, because the more they will visualize a sense of purpose which is high, the better it's going to be, and they can be creative for that. So the sense of purpose, like the values, like the vision of the company, is always more powerful when you include people to do it. I was even in the European Space Agency with the astronauts, as they have realized that when you involve people about the sense of purpose or the beauty of the mission, it's more powerful to do that, even when it seems to be obvious. Concerning sense of purpose, and desire is mainly the energy of human being. And if we look also at business, you can apply that also in business. Steve Jobs, for instance, I worked for 7 years at Apple. At the beginning, I was in charge of the marketing, the product marketing for EMEA. And I remember when I was involved in worldwide meeting, one question of Steve, his first question to us was, what type of user experience, extraordinary user experience, we want our customers to get. So emotions, desire is important for the employees, and of course it's important also for the clients. Concerning desire and energy, another question. I'm not going to open a poll to save a little bit some time, but one question for you is, what do you do to make your team members desire to work with you? The performance of your team members depends a lot on that. Not only, but a lot. And you can be extremely challenging, extremely demanding, and create this desire to work with you. It's two separate things. If you are rude or tough with your people, too much and too often, you are not going to get the maximum of performance. Another question for you, Anne, is what is your real desire right now to work with your team and your current job? It's another point to work on, because if your desire is not high enough right now, it's difficult afterwards to create desire. So desire, basically for remote teams, it's about creating collectively a vision of the results of the project, of the future, which is an exciting vision. One key question can be, for instance, imagine that we are at the end of the project and we are very happy. Why we are very happy? And the feeling is going basically to be really connected to the desire. Again, it's not easy, especially when there is a crisis, but it's important to do it. So to summarize this part, energy has to come from you, the leader, but mainly from all your team members. So do we have, Nicolas, a question concerning this topic?
Yeah, Patrick, we've got one question, and it's very interesting because it's a question which is coming simultaneously from Basanti in India and from Matthias, which I guess might be from France or from Germany. And the question is following. You were talking about the level of people energy in your conference, but how can we measure it from distance?
Okay. So basically, there are two. I would say there are two categories for that. One is the feelings, and the second thing is the facts. What's going to happen? So, for instance, when you talk to people, again through video or through audio, it's important to listen, to say nothing, and to be here just to listen, especially the difficulties of your team members. And you're going to feel basically what are the emotions. And it's important that you know yourself well, because sometimes you project your own emotions. So if you know which topics you are sensitive to, you can distinguish the emotions coming from your team members and coming from you. And the second category is just facts. If, for instance, you organize a meeting and you and you see that one team member never talks, it means probably that there is something happening if you compare to the past. So there are many techniques for that, and one tool is, for instance, the delegated role from Alain Cardon. You delegate the roles when you organize a meeting from a distance, and you can just count the number of time the employees have done something or participated or asked questions. So this is basically the way you can measure the level of emotions. There is a researcher in France. His name is André Tricot, working at Toulouse, and his research said that to learn, to grow, the human processes of learning do not change with technology. So what is important is not basically technology, is mainly to establish this feeling. And if you want to use technology, of course, and we need that from a distance, tools, what is important in the tools is to have the opportunity to measure, for instance, the motivation of people. Just to take an example, if you have an extranet, an intranet, instead of putting an article full page, you can do, as you can see in the social network, you can just write few lines and more. And when people click on more, you know that basically they are interested in the topic. So this is not easy to measure emotion from a distance. This is something to work on and to rehearse. Okay. So let's move to the next aspect. Another one is about what I call enabling people. Why is it important from distance? Because sometimes leaders can be worried when they, especially maybe now, when you have your team members working from home, maybe you can wonder if they are working full time, if they are not too much, if they don't have their mind too much polluted by something else or whatever. So sometimes when leaders are worried, they put too much control lockers, and at the end, people cannot move at all. So why do you want to develop the energy of your team members if they cannot move? So it's an important topic to cover. And one question for you could be, I'm not going to open the poll for that, but basically you can wonder, what is your level of freedom right now in your job? This is a question that you can ask to yourself. In executive education, when I have many managers with this question, I can see that many leaders think that they don't have a lot of freedom, but freedom is in the mind. Another question, and let's see the poll, by the way, for this one. Let's have a poll for this one. Team members. If we ask to your team members, how would they rate their level of freedom in their job? Okay, 70%. Let's share the results. So we have 60%, considering that it's big. So maybe you are very optimistic, or maybe that's true. Very big, 16%, 23% small, and 1% very small. Again, and this is an important point of progress to focus on in order to develop basically the autonomy and the power of your team. So why is it important? If you think about tennis players, here you have Maria Sharapova. when she wins, it's because she knows the rules very well, how to play tennis. And because she knows the rules, she can play at the maximum level. What happens if the lines of the court disappear, and if she doesn't want to be eliminated from the tournament, she will put the ball in the middle, of the court, and it's difficult to win with this. So to have the maximum of performance, is very important to have a clear framework. And there is no freedom without clear framework. It's an important point. So what is framework? Framework is what is imposed to you. So in your company, for instance, the framework is what the top management is imposing to you, but it can be also outside the company. It can be the regulations. It can be a crisis, a virus. A virus can impose things as well. So there are many things which are imposed to us. It's important to know them, to clarify them, and to accept them. So with remote teams, it's very important to be clear, clarity of the rules, and also to check that people accept the rules and they are comfortable with the rules. When someone is not comfortable with the rule, the performance is not optimized. Another example that I have experienced, again, it's my previous boss at Apple. I remember every quarter, Tim Cook was coming to EMEA when I was in charge of the business development of iPod in retail for EMEA. I remember Tim was very clear with the framework. He was saying to us, I expect from you this, that you reach the objective the next quarter. And most of the time, it was very aggressive objective. And he was saying always the same thing, you know better than me what you have to do, because I am from America, and even if I am the worldwide boss, you have better responses, and you know better than me what you have to do in your geography. So Tim basically was saying that a lot, and it was helping us basically to be able to use our energy and to have this freedom. But the framework was extremely clear. So in terms of influence, leaders have to provide really clear context to work, to reduce uncertainty, ambiguity, and also, which is going to be the next topic that we're going to see, also the strong relationship with the cohesion. We're going to see that in a minute. Concerning time, I know that some of you, for instance, are struggling, or sometimes some remote teams are struggling with time. And that's true that when people are alone, or when they are especially not experienced, as it can be right now the case with the lockdown of COVID, it requires some discipline. And one way to help your team members to manage better that time is to ask them what they are doing and how much time they have spent on this topic or that topic. So what is important is self-awareness. It's not to impose them to report to you what they are doing every hour, but it's more to ask them to think about the question: what have you done today? What have you done this week? How much time have you allocated? It's the beginning for managing time. So just to summarize, concerning enabling, so enabling people, it's mainly a question of creating the room, clarifying the rules, trusting people again, delegating delegating in an effective way, and maybe we have a question, Nicolas, concerning this category.
Yes, we have a question coming from YouTube. It is Guillaume, who actually is an executive, an HEC Paris executive MBA student. And Guillaume is basically wondering, shall I say, more than asking a question, and he's really wondering what type of control should a manager use from distance?
Okay. Yeah, from distance, the control has to be higher, has to be reinforced. And at the same time, it has to come from the bottom. It's like in complex organization with matrix organization, and there are some research from Harvard and from many other universities showing, HEC as well, showing that the more it's complex, the more it's dispersed geographically, the more you have to control. But the control should be self-controlled by people. So basically, a key question is to ask your team members, how do you want to keep me informed about your progression in order to allow me to help you if there is a need? And so how do you want to inform me, to keep me informed on a regular basis? This is the best way to give the responsibility of control to your team members. So it's one answer. So the last aspect I wanted to share with you, which is a very important one, is the quality of the relationship. Maybe some of you, when you open a meeting with your team members, you start with the agenda, and afterward you talk about the objective, about the resources, the difficulties, and so on, which is absolutely necessary and useful. And at the same time, when you look at the most performing teams, you can see that the difference is not this. The highest performing team requires absolutely a strong connection. And a strong connection, what does it mean? It means that it doesn't mean that the internet connection works, or it doesn't mean that you send emails to others. It means that people are connected to you, and basically there is a cohesion, and there is a high cohesion in the team. And it's very important to, again, in many research work, you can see that the quality of the support is absolutely critical. And basically, you can try to respond to that question without any poll right now. So basically, what is the quality of the support that you provide to them? The support that they expect from you, not the support that you want to provide. So with this geographically discussion, it's very important to focus on the quality of the support. Just to give you basically again the conclusion of a research work, the quality of the leadership is going to depend a lot on the relationship, the posture, to listen, the coaching posture, and to communicate effectively. Some examples: if you think about someone in a selling competition across the world, the guy is alone, as some team members maybe from your team, they are alone right now, and he can perform very well because the quality of the support is extremely high. It's the same for the astronaut. I have the privilege to work from time to time with some astronauts, and we talk about this topic, and they can perform, they can basically they can deliver an incredible high level of results because they get support from Earth, and also not only from the business team, but also from their family, from many people. So support is extremely critical with a geographical dispersion. So one question again that you can wonder, basically, how often do you contribute to improve the quality of the relationship between your team members? What do you do? And how often do you work on that? It's a question. It's a question to ask to yourself. Concerning the answers and what you can do, the first thing to do, especially with remote teams, is to create the conditions to make people feel safe. So what does it mean, feeling safe in a team? It means that people are going to accept me as I am. And we are all different, and the differences are not only visual, it's mainly a question of culture. And culture is not, it's not only the national culture. Culture basically means relationship to time. It can be relationship to hierarchy, you know, these type of things. For this, there is a very good book of a colleague, which is Philippe Rosinski, basically coaching across cultures. He has creating, well, basically it's a good, I would say, compilation of the cultural dimensions. His tool is the COF, COF tool, and you can have, you can understand better how it's difficult to accept the others, and to accept the others, first you need to accept yourself. You will accept more easily your team members, different from you, if first you accept yourself correctly. Sometimes in a team there is a need of regulation. One professor at HEC, Gilles Amado, has worked with Claude Onesta, 2 times Olympic champions, and sometimes regulation has to be done. And the regulation is better that you do it by yourself. When there is a beginning of conflict, it's better that when it's necessary to be tough, you do it instead of leaving your team members to do it. So you can also try to measure what is your ability to regulate your team and to avoid basically that conflicts are growing. Relationship, I said at the beginning, the best tool is to create the condition for safety, and afterward to propose to your team members a lot of activities for them to share, to work together, to give recognitions. So there are plenty of tools to increase the relationship. It's interpersonal needs, the need of controlling, influencing the performance of the team. So it's many things. So Nicolas, do you have any question concerning this category?
Yeah, and it will be the last one, Patrick, because we are running a little bit out of time. So it's a quick question from John in the UK. And John would like, about the relationship quality, he would like to know what level of team cohesion can we expect within a remote team? In other words, is it more or less than when the team is together, physically speaking?
Okay, yeah, okay. When people are in the same room, you have much more interaction, which means that it's easier to adjust and to adapt your behavior. So when you have a remote team, it's more difficult if you know how to do it than when the team is co-located. And at the same time, the cohesion of a remote team can be extremely good and can be higher than a co-located team because the cohesion is not connected to the distance. The distance creates some difficulties, but when you know as a leader to create the proximity and especially what we have mentioned a few minutes ago, you can have an incredible level of cohesion. And you can have an astronaut for 6 months in space with an incredible level of cohesion with the people on Earth, because you have prepared it before. Okay, so the cohesion level can be higher. If you are now in the COVID situation, create some, celebrate birthday, anniversary, celebrate everything, and organize from time to time some face-to-face meeting when you can. It's always better. A dispersed team perform more when people meet from time to time. The frequency is minimum once a year, preferably twice a year, and if you can more, every quarter, every month, it's better. As a conclusion, because I'm looking at the clock, as the conclusion, there are many aspects to think about, so you can read them here. And just to move forward, we had only 1 hour for that. I would say that to conclude, I'm putting also for you some different research works that can be interesting for you. I would say my conclusion is the limits of your team depends a lot on your own limits. So work on yourself, work on your beliefs. If you don't believe that a dispersed team can perform very well, you are going to limit. Work on your cognitive biases, work on your fears, work on your automatic behaviors. Work on that. It's going to help a lot. And coaching is a very important maybe a way for doing this. If you learn how to become to embody the coaching posture, you can excel afterwards with remote teams. Okay. Enjoy experimenting. It's not easy, especially when there is a crisis. So try to discover. Don't step by step. Small step by small step. Experimenting means to enjoy, to secure the framework. Do not create any explosion, but really enjoy. Trust yourself, trust your team. The sky is the limit. And at HEC, we used to say that what to learn to dare, learning more to dare. This is what Seneca basically almost said many years ago. So you can do it. Trust yourself, and it's not because things are difficult that you cannot do them. Thank you very much for participating. And Nicolas, I give you the floor.
Thank you, Patrick. Because of the time, we will not take any further question. One thing is absolutely interesting is that my own team is spread all over the country for a month now. I haven't seen them for a month, so I'm not so sure that I'm missing them, but there is one thing which is absolutely sure is that I miss them a lot. So this concludes our webinar, and I'm giving the floor to Florent for the final conclusion.
Yes, thank you very much, Nicolas and Patrick, for this webinar. HEC Paris would like to thank you for taking part in this conference, and we hope you can join us for other webinars. Have a good night.